Hey, this is Max at 343 Labs. We're a music production school based in New York City, Berlin, and online. And today I'd like to show you a clip by one of our instructors, John Selway, which is taken from 343 TV, which airs right here on our channel several days per week. Now, if you want to watch the full stream, head over to studio.343labs.com, link in the description, which is our new producer hub where you can meet other producers, get free content, collaborate, and get feedback on your music. Enjoy the clip.
Sting 2022 by IFTA. This is a free, it's supposed to be kind of an acid line generator, and that's pretty much, you don't have to use it for acid. You could use it with any type of synth you want, but that's sort of what it's geared towards. And I was curious because, like, one, it's got a smiley face. It's got a trippy, wavy smiley face, and, well, you know, you want that, right? You want some kind of cool little animations and visuals while you're using your Max for Live devices. But I was curious to see how effective it was, and, you know, using this and like just a simple subtractive / analog type synth to see how close I could get to an act like a reasonable emulation of a real 303. So that was the first thing that I wanted to play around with. This is the Sting acid line generator in action. Let's kill that kick drum for a second. I kind of like this pattern. I mean, it's simple. It's like the most basic kind of easy techno acid pattern, right? We've got this length of 5/16 notes. That's set the duration of the notes is set here by the rates, and then the individual note length. And I'm actually kind of trying to work this out a little bit. There's a gate setting so that, you know, notes per step can be shorter or longer. And it's not transparent to me exactly how it's choosing which notes are shorter and which notes are longer. And that's actually a thing with 303 programming and emulation, is like the original sequencer in the 303 has a very specific way that it handles note length. And sometimes the emulations do that right, and sometimes they don't, right? So that said, it still does a pretty good job of making cool acid lines. And who says it has to be perfectly exactly like the 303 sequencer? All right, so I'm trying to remember, did I actually, before I get rid of this, did I capture it? I did. All right, so one of the things you'll want to do with this probably is record the output of whatever the MIDI sequencer is generating, capturing. This is just a workflow thing no matter what your type of MIDI generator you're using. If it's anything random, you probably want to be able to save or capture. And usually the way to do it is record the output of the MIDI into another MIDI clip. So that's what I did here. So I can, you know, I can kind of safely screw this one up, or actually let's just duplicate that track. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off and sort of see how this thing works from scratch. All right. So we can set a length. Right, that's 4/16 notes. If we're going to go all the way up to 16. And we have a density. All right, so one note per 16 steps up to 16. And you can hear there's some bends in there, and that's happening because of the way the synth is configured. And that's another part of this, like making acid lines, whether you're using a generator, a sequencer like this that's generating patterns randomly or semi-randomly, to get it to sound like a 303 requires, you know, all you need is the sawtooth wave or a square wave. You need a monophonic synth, right? So I have my number of voices to mono. The voice priority usually is best set to last if you can choose that. And there's glide, right? And it shouldn't be too fast or too slow. I used my ear to figure out that somewhere around 50 or 60% on Live's analog was pretty close to the rate of the glide or the bend on a 303. And then I need legato mode so that it only bends when notes overlap, right? That's how you emulate that. If it's bending all the time, 303s don't sound like that. At least unmodified 303s don't sound like that. They don't always bend. They only bend between notes when they sustain. So putting that into legato mode more accurately recreates that type of bend when the note lengths are longer. And the other thing is your envelopes have to be correct. So legato mode needs to be on the envelope so they don't re-trigger every note. I mean, you'll hear if I go in and turn. That sounds cool, but with legato off, every note the filter envelope is being re-triggered every time a note is played, and that is not how a 303 works. So if that's on, we're only hearing the envelope re-trigger when notes are not sustaining and gliding. All right. And another thing is that I'm pretty sure, not 100%, that the amp envelope on a 303 doesn't really have much of a decay at all. I mean, maybe it does, but I think it's almost all in the filter envelope. I could be wrong, if someone in there knows for sure, but the way I've always heard it is that the modulation is on the filter more than the amplitude in terms of that decay. All right, so anyway, back to the sequencer. So here's, again, right, we have the length, the density, and the type is kind of making the pattern more or less random. So if I go all the way down, fully random, and you can see it says the word random. And then I think as I increase towards, this is applying different scale quantizing, different note quantizing to make it hit certain notes. And when you go all the way to acid, which is kind of funny, it's all like minor thirds and octaves. So it makes it sound more sort of generic acid in a way, which works really well for certain styles of techno probably. And then you can change the root note. Oh, I have to turn MIDI off. Is this getting... That was weird. All right, let's generate a new pattern. Right, so that's the trick. You click the smiley face, and you get a whole new pattern. If you don't want bending, you're going to reduce the gate, and you're going to hear every single note. So once that's below 100, all right. But once you go over 100, you start to get some notes longer length, and they overlap a little bit. And all the way up to 200, and a lot of the notes overlap. So it's not exactly how it would happen on a real 303, but the result is pretty close to what it sounds like. So Oval Shrimp is asking, is that sequencer choosing the notes? Yes, that's the whole point of this. We're using generative devices. I'm not playing any of these notes from MIDI. It's there, right? But there's no clip on this track anymore. So it is all coming from this plugin. It is generating the MIDI notes. That's right. All right. How does that sound with a kick drum? Oh, sorry. I want this one. I picked semi-randomly picked a kick from Loop Cloud. I was like, which kick should I use? I don't know. Loop Cloud, bang. And then here I have like a fairly typical, thick, punchy, modern techno kick. Let's play around with this for a little while, see what we get. I like the low notes of this. So it might be a good idea. I said before, like you want to, when you're randomly or generating whatever patterns like this, you should probably record the output of it or save it somehow. And the best way to do that for me is in Live is to. All right, I have no idea which one this is. Let's do this one. All right, MIDI from this one. All right, that's where I want the MIDI to come from. I'm gonna turn the monitor off, activate the track, and then just capture that. So that's what the MIDI looks like. Let's make some more. That one's good too. More acidy. The more it jumps up and down and bends, it gets even more like trippy acidy, right? Let's hear that with some more, with a longer gate time. All right, right now it's doing something that a real 303 wouldn't do. So that's what I was talking about. Like every now and then the sequencer does something that the 303 sequencer wouldn't be able to do exactly. And so if you're trying to do a close to the real thing kind of emulation, that's going to take you out of it. But when you don't push it too hard, it's pretty close. And then, of course, again, the other thing is like the sound you're playing is going to determine a lot of what that is. Let's keep going. Sometimes it's nice to have it not play constantly, right? Now, I like the low notes of this. Let's capture that. Okay. But now, another thing I can do to create variations here is to change the offset. So it's going to move the notes over. Or shift the pattern over. And this one's more, well, this one's really good actually. It's a little more offbeat. It's sort of made it feel like it's pushing harder now. Or pushing faster, not harder. That's pretty good. You can play with the synth a little bit. Sounds better when it's less resonant for this. Let me just show you what I mean before about having the glide time right. Here it's too fast, and here it's too slow. I feel like I might have... Did I change something? Sometimes, it's funny, let me stop this for a second so I can think. Sometimes I'm hearing the envelopes kind of trigger a little funny. And I think, I don't know if it's, and when I was listening to this at home, I felt like every now and then the timing was slightly off. And I don't know if it was the sequencer doing it, or if there's something about Live's analog synth where it is a little bit off triggering sometimes. I definitely need to try this with another synth probably. Cool. Oh, hey, Shelly. Nice to have you back. Shelly says this would be a great tool to make a sample pack. Yeah, I mean, for sure, right? You could, like, generate these patterns, capture the audio and the MIDI at the same time, and then go back and organize that. Yeah, for sure. If you're making, like, if you're trying to crank out loops for sample packs or for your own productions, this is definitely going to be helpful. Good suggestion. I like that. All right. Wispa says, I'm a big fan of silence. Like, space in music is important. Like, and also these 303 patterns, if they're always playing, they can get a little bit incessant, right? It's good to have it pause and syncopate sometimes, right? So I agree there. Cool. Let me capture that one. All right. keep playing. Just gonna keep making patterns. Why not? So changing the root, it kind of doesn't do exactly what you would think at first, right? It's not like transposing the whole pattern up and down in terms of semitones. It's whatever the one note that it's playing the most, whatever the sequencer is determining is the root of the pattern, that shifts, but the other stuff doesn't. That's actually kind of cool. That's unusual behavior, I would say, for a 303 style pattern generator. I haven't heard that exactly happen. Maybe it exists, I just haven't heard it. And it has a little MIDI button, so if you want, you could make a melodic sequence by all right, let's do this. Right, it's sort of weird, but if you got the right notes, you could go in and transpose the root over time and create a pattern. It's going to take some experimenting. Let's see. Okay. You see what I'm getting at here. I'm just trying to create a subtle variation in the pattern. Sounds kind of happy. So it's not happy, positive, even though it's in minor. I don't even know what these must be some scales. It doesn't say what they are. Some polymetric stuff. That's good. I like that low note. I feel like making this bigger and dirtier now. I mean, I already have this thick, punchy kick drum. There we go. Just need some reverb. I know there's tons of like videos out there on how to make tutorials and whatever on how to make acid and stuff like that. So, you know, I guess we don't have to go too far into the synth and sound design thing here, but I do want to point out, like, this isn't a 303 and it sounds a heck of a lot like one, and it's because I'm trying to work again within the limitations of an actual 303. Like, it's not exactly the same filter, it's not going to have exactly the same tone, but if you go too high with the resonance, it loses it. If you go too high or low with the frequency range, you lose it. And you have to kind of control it in exactly the right way. Like the amount of envelope mod, that's something that you can control on a real 3.0. So that's something you're going to want to play with. But if you go too far, it kind of, again, loses the realism. And even if you go too short on the decay, it starts to, you know, it could sound cool, but it starts to go out of the range of the real thing. And then another thing to point out about the plugin, about this acid line generator, is it does do velocity, right? A 303 sequencer has an accent, which makes certain sounds louder and brighter because it's doing a little filter and a little amplitude modulation. And so in order to get this synth to follow that, I've got velocity to envelope going on. So if that's at 0, there's no accents. But if let's do it on the amp, it'll be. All right, we're not hearing that much of a difference because I'm squashing the heck out of it with the distortion. But trust me, it's doing something. You can hear it. It gets less intense when I bring it down. It could be a whole track now. I just need some hi-hats and stuff. Okay, done. Yes, that's right. Oval Shrimp says add them to macros and set range limits. That is exactly what you do. Let's do it. All right. So we'll do the filter, and the resonance, and the envelope modulation amount, and the envelope, the velocity to envelope amount. Yeah. Oh, and the decay. The decay time. Let's put that on 7. And then up here, you can set the limits. So if I bring, that's too low for the filter frequency minimum. So bring that up until it sounds good again. Bring it all the way up. 22,000 is too high. Probably somewhere below 20, really. The resonance, same thing. I bring the resonance all the way down. I want to set the maximum to as high as I ever want it to be. And the minimum can go all the way down, probably. Good. Now with the envelope amount, I want the minimum to be 0 because I don't want it to invert the direction. And I probably, I didn't really ever make it higher than 4 or 5, so let's make that 5. All right, same thing with the decay. Too fast. Somewhere around there. And then the velocity, probably, I don't know, 3. And I think that's most of it. All right, I need to still some tweaking to do on the right, I don't care, actually I don't care that sounds perfectly like a 303. That sounds good. I'm happy with that. I'm gonna make a track out of this. Just you watch.
I hope you enjoyed that. Again, if you want to watch the full stream, head over to studio.343labs.com, link in the description below. And that is our new producer hub where you can find free content, collaborate with other musicians, get feedback on your music, and just meet a community of like-minded artists and producers. See you next time.